Good morning students. Let's continue our chapter Ivan tries an O level. Ivan, who is right now in prison because he is a kleptomaniac who has a habit to steal something. He is really a big challenge for the governor because already 3 times he tried to escape from the prison, and this time he is trying to something new, that is now he is going to appear in the exam of German O level. He is taking his classes of German O level in prison, and now the governor and all the officers of the Oxford prison facing the challenge how the exam of Ivan will be proved not create any nuisance to them. So, governor called the chief secretary of examination board, please prepare all the process of exam inside the prison, because he does not want to give any chance of escape this time Ivan. Ivan, he is not looking so much interested in exam, but according to the governor, maybe it will be his another chance to escape from the prison. Jackson and Stephen, 2 other officers also appointed to look after the whole procedure of exam without any mistake. So students, page number 73 and the last line of that, buried somewhere in Jackson was a tiny core of compassion, and Ivan knew it. When Ivan requested, please, I will not remove my hat from my head because it is my lucky charm, and today he is going to be appear in a very important exam, that is why he want to keep it himself. He knows very well that Jackson really has a part of compassion in his heart. So, Ivan just trying to take the advantage of this. Just this one, then the Shirley Temple. If there was one thing that Jackson genuinely loathed about Ivan, it was his long wavy hair. Shirley Temple, it was the name of the character belonged to the American film or the television actors because of the long hair. And Jackson does not like the long hair of Ivan. At 8:45 the same morning, Reverend Todd McCleary left the bachelor flat in Broad Street and stepped out briskly towards the Carfax. Mr. McCleary, who was appointed as the invigilator for the exams of Ivan. The weatherman reported temperature considerably below the normal for early June, and a long black overcoat and a shallow crowned clerical hat provided welcome protection from the steady drizzle which had set in half an hour earlier and which now spattered the thick lenses of spectacles. In his last hand he was carrying a small brown suitcase. This is the physical appearance of McCleary. He was wearing a long coat, also having a cover because of drizzle. It means some drops of raining was outside there. So, he was wearing a protective also and having a suitcase, a small brown suitcase which contained all that he would need for his morning duties, including a sealed question paper, envelope, a yellow invigilation form, a special authentication card from the examination board, a paper like an identification card provided by the examination board, a paper knife, a Bible. He was to speak the Women Guild that afternoon on the Book of the Ruth, and a current copy of the Church Time. For passing his time, he just having the newspaper or magazine. The 2-hour examination was scheduled to start at 9:15. Ivan was lathering his face vigorously when Stephen brought in 2 small square tables and set them opposite each other in the narrow space between the bunk on the one side, on the other a distempered stone wall. Ivan, who was making himself perfect just to appear in the exam, and Jackson, who was preparing the material for exams. Next, Stephen brought in 2 hard chairs, the slightly less battered of which he placed in front of the table, which stood nearer the cell door. It means table and chair were properly arranged for exam of Ivan. One chair for Mr. McCleary and another one for Ivan. Jackson put in a brief final appearance, "Behave yourself, lady." Ivan turned and nodded. Laddie, it means a boy. Lad, it's called a boy. That is why Jackson called him a laddie. Ivan turned and nodded. Ivan. These, Jackson pointed to the pin-ups of. Ivan turned and nodded again. "I was going to take them down anyway. A minister, isn't that? And chap that's coming to sit in, I mean." "And how did you know that?" asked Jackson quietly. "Well, I had to sign some form, didn't I? And I could then help." Ivan drew the razor carefully down his left cheek and left a neat swath in the white leather. "Can I ask you something, Mr. Jackson? Why did they have to bug me in the cell?" He nodded his head vaguely to a point above the door. "Not a very neat job," concerned Jackson. They don't honestly think I'm going to try to. They are taking no chances, Ivan. Nobody in his senses would take any chance with you. Ivan, who is just pretending to be very innocent. He is just shaving and busy to make himself clean up and perfect appearance in the examination. But Jackson, who is very careful and telling Ivan that this time they will not do any kind of mistake to provide any escape to Ivan. "I will tell you who is going to listen it, the laddie. It's the governor himself, see. He don't trust you a bloody inch. Nor do I. I will be watching you like a hawk, Ivan, so keep your nose clear." He walked towards the door. Ivan nodded, and he would already thought of that, and number 2 handkerchief was lying ready on the bunk, a neatly folded square of white linen. "Just one more thing, Ivan Einstein." "Yeah, what's at?" "Good luck, old son." All the equipment have been taken away from the Ivan cell. There were only 2 things was there. 2 handkerchief only for Ivan was put there, and nothing was else. And Jackson, after leaving the room, he was just telling the good luck to Ivan. In the little lodge just inside the prison main gate, the Reverend St. McCleary signed his name neatly in the visitor's book, and thence walked side by side with the silent prison officer across the exercise yard to D wing. McCleary entered inside the prison. After some formalities, he entered his name in visitor book, and then he started to move towards the D wing, where he was greeted by Jackson. The wing's heavy outer door was locked behind them. Heavy inner door the same. McCleary was handed into Stephen's keeping. "Get the razor," murmured Jackson. Stephen nodded. "Well, keep your eyes skin clear." Stephen nodded again, and McCleary, his feet clanging up the iron stair, followed his new guide, finally stood before a cell door where Stephen opened the peephole, looked through. Where the Ivan has been kept inside the cell, there was a peephole. There was a small hole in the iron door to just look after the Ivan inside the cell, what he is doing there. And that's him, sir. Ivan, facing the door, sat quietly at the farther of 2 tables, his whole attention riveted to a textbook of elementary, the German grammar. Stephens took the key from its ring. The cell lock sprang back with a thudded metallic twang, and the door of the Ivan prison has been shut very clearly and very sharply. It was 9:10 a.m. when the governor switched on the receiver. He had instructed Jackson to tell Ivan of the temporary little precautions that was only fair. as if Ivan wouldn't spot it, but wasn't it all a bit theatrical? Schoolboyish almost. How on earth was Ivan going to try anything on today? Everybody was just confused and having some nervousness also, because they don't know what kind of plan is going on in the mind of Ivan this day. If he was so anxious to make another break, why in heaven's name hadn't he tried it from the recreational block? Much easier. But he hadn't, and there he was now sitting in a locked cell. Precautionally, he was giving his exam in the locked cell, and there was only two people inside. One was McLeary, St. McLeary, and the second one was the candidate Ivan. Two more locked doors between his cell and the yard, and a yard with a wall as high as a haystack. Yes, Ivan was as safe as houses. Anyway, it means he was sitting inside the cell, and there was outside a cell door also, and the fences of the outside area was really very high. To cross them, it was not very easy to cross them out. The governor sat up sharply. It was all very well getting rid of any potential weapon that Ivan could have used. But what about McLeary? What if, quite unwittingly, the innocent McLeary had brought in something himself? McLeary was thoroughly investigated, and after checking hole, a jackknife perhaps, and what if Ivan held him hostage with such a weapon? There was a paper knife having with Mr. McLeary. It was taken by him. The governor reached for the phone. It was 9 to 12 at am. Examinee and invigilator had already been introduced by Stephen. Jackson came back, shouted to McLeary through the cell door, "Can you come outside a minute, sir?" "You too, Stephen." Jackson quickly explained the governor's worries. McLeary patiently held out his arm at shoulders level that whilst Jackson slightly frisked his cloth. "Something hard here, sir, and it's my reading glasses," replied McLeary, looking down at the spectacles case. McLeary, who was already wearing the spectacles but having the extra spectacle in his pocket, when he was asked about it, he replied that these spectacles are his reading glasses. Jackson quietly reassured him. Bending down, the lending thumb flickered the catches on the suitcase. He picked up each envelope in turn, carefully passed his palm along their surfaces, seemed satisfied. Every question paper, everything in the suitcase has been inspected very carefully. He refilled curiously and through a few pages of Holy Writ, vaguely shook the church time. All right so far, but one of the object McLeary's suitcase was puzzling him sorely. There was something inside in the suitcase that really confusing. "Do you mind telling me why you have brought this, sir?" He held up a smallish, semi-inflated rubber ring. Such a young child with a waist of about 12 inches might have struggled into. "You thinking of going for a swim, sir?" It was like a rubber ring having in the bag of Mr. McLeary. McLeary, here too amiable, demure, was he was very amiable, very polite, and said that, "Oh, by this tasteless little pleasantry," he answered Jackson somewhat surely, "if you must know, I suffer from the hemorrhoids, and when I am sitting down for any length of time." "Oh, extremely sorry, sir." Mr. McLeary replied that he has some problem to sitting on the chair properly. That is why this rubber ring would provide him some help to sitting over there for a long time. And both of the officers feel really ashamed and they apologize. And Mr. McLeary, he was ordered and he was really allowed to enter inside the cell of Ivan. In this way, whole the procedure and investigation have been completed before starting the exam of Ivan. Students, we will continue the part of the chapter tomorrow. Goodbye.